stream beats drop and, you know, mixer getting shut down, all those things that I haven't quite found the time to do this one. OBS, the streaming software that nearly every streamer uses. Some of you guys use it really well. Some of you guys, not so much. And then some of you are just opening it up for the first time and are completely overwhelmed and have no idea what anything means. There are so many cool things in OBS that no matter which of those people you identify with in your skill set of OBS, there's always something new to learn. So let's go through the software. Let's just build a stream together. I'll show you the bare bone basics, like setting up multiple scenes, knowing which settings are important within the vast array of options in the settings tab that you've probably seen before. And I'll show you some of my favorite, more advanced tips and tricks that are actually really easy to do if you just know what to click on. Things like custom widgets and hotkeys to switch scenes automatically. Sounds good? Go. By the way, huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, owns.tv. They are your one-stop shop for all your stream aesthetic needs, whether it's overlays or alerts or panels or whatever. And one of my favorite things about it is that their overlays are modular. So for example, if you and all your friends want a similar overlay and you pick up this minimalist series overlay you're looking at right now, each of you can pick and choose different pieces of the overlay to use. So even though you'll all be using the exact same theme, none of you will have the exact same overlay. If you'd like to make the smart move like many from the community have done, feel free to use the link in the description down below. That link also supports the channel when you use it. And then on top of that, if you want 40% off, use code alpha at checkout. So the goal of this video is within the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, set up a live stream that looks comparable to the one that I use when I go live on Twitch, which by the way, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Link to that in the description down below. Come hang out. Sound like a plan? Awesome. So with OBS launched and completely bare bones, this is what it looks like. You know, it's weird. You got a bunch of weird boxes. You've got some stuff here with milliseconds and you got a bunch of little buttons here. In the beginning, all we're gonna look at is this area, which is our preview. It shows us what our stream looks like. And these two areas right here. These are all your different scenes. So you can have a gameplay scene here that has your gameplay and your camera over in the corner. And then you can have an intermission scene here, which would be obviously between games when you can blow your camera up larger and interact with your chat a little bit more. And as you switch between them, the different sources are all the elements inside that scene. So essentially, these are folders with all the different things in it. Let's start by making our gameplay scene. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rename this scene gameplay, so I know which one it is. So we got our scene. Let's add in a source. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our display. So right off the bat, I know this is a little bit Inception-y because we're looking at our display, which also shows our display, which you get the point. And here we can see our entire screen and what it's capturing. So we're gonna hit OK, and you can see anything I might bring up, whether it's my Stream Deck software or whatever, it's gonna show up right here. Anyone that's watching my stream can see my screen now. Now there are a couple different ways of capturing your screen. One more that you should be aware of. Another one, instead of using display capture, would be game capture. You can see if I add this in, if you have a game open, you'll be able to choose that specific game, or you can say choose any full screen application, which is, you know, usually you play your games in full screen. It'll grab whatever game is running, but it won't grab anything else. So this way, if you alt tab out of your game or minimize it to open up something in YouTube, your audience isn't gonna be able to see it because it's only capturing your gameplay. However, the advantage to this is game capture is a lighter load on your PC. So if you're running a little bit more of a budget PC and trying to game and stream on it at the same time, it might be best to use game capture. You'll notice fewer dropped frames on your stream. So now you can see here, I've got two different sources in here, game capture, display capture. I'm gonna get rid of game capture by hitting this little minus button right there. And we're gonna stick with game capture because I got a pretty beefy PC over here. All right, let's add in the most important part. Let's add in your face. So whether you're using a webcam or a DSLR going into a capture card, those are all called video capture devices. So we're gonna name this one webcam. You can see if I click on device, it'll show me every single video input source that the computer recognizes. So if I had another webcam plugged in here, it would show up right in here. But we're using my EOS R connected to my Cam Link right now. And so we're gonna go with Cam Link 4K. And generally, device default is fine. But if you need to go to custom and do a custom resolution, that's an option for you. Let's shrink this down because it's our gameplay scene. We're gonna put it over here. I'm trying to like move this so you don't get that weird Inception-y stuff. I'm trying to cover it with the webcam. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, maybe something like that. If I were gaming, I'd probably zoom in a little bit more, during this scene. And there we go. We got our gameplay. We got our camera. Honestly, that is the bare bones that you can start a stream like that and people will enjoy it. Now, one thing to note is that the order of the sources is important. So you can see right now my webcam is on top of my display capture. And that's entirely because my webcam is on top of my display capture. If I drag it underneath it, look at that. I bring it back up, it goes back on top again. Make sure you're ordering your sources in the order of front to back. So next thing, let's grab an overlay. So we want to add another source. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a static overlay, a non-animated overlay. And it's just going to be an image. Call it camera border. So we're going to browse for an image file, which I've got one right on the desktop called white line camera border. And it's just a simple white rectangle, which, by the way, you do whatever you want. This is where you get to be creative.
The fact that I could invest in real estate, someone that had no experience at all, no knowledge, I've done something.
I would recommend not going overboard and keeping these things simple. This is actually pretty similar to what mine is currently set to. I'm gonna turn off the display capture with this, just so I can see the edges of the camera a little bit easier. I can use the arrow keys to move it one at a time. Cool, let's turn this back on. Now we got a camera border. And we can do something pretty cool here. We can take the camera border and the webcam and we can group them. We're just gonna call them cam. And now I can move, I can stretch this whole thing. It'll all work together. Now, if I wanted to add an animated border, I would go to add and I would go to media source, which is where you import videos. And we're gonna call this animated overlay. So here's one that I got during a Fiverr video that I shot a while ago. A Fiverr artist animated this for me. You can see it's really subtle, it's simple, but it's kind of stylized. You got this little thing moving, you got this little thing flashing here. So if you wanted to add an animated overlay, that's where you'd find it. But I'm gonna get rid of it by hitting this little minus button. There's one more thing to add to this scene to make it a fully featured gameplay scene, and that's gonna be our alerts. So whether you use Streamlabs or Stream Elements, whenever you're done customizing your alerts, they pop you out a browser source, right? Or a URL. So for example, if I were to go to Stream Elements, which is the service I use. So here we can see I've got my sub alerts. This is what they look like. I'm gonna copy the link from Stream Elements. I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna add one more source. It's gonna be a browser source. We're gonna call it sub alerts. We're gonna paste that URL right in there. We're gonna make sure the width and height match what we have it set to in our alert software. So that alert in Stream Elements was a 1080p alert, and hit OK. And now if I emulate another subscriber, you can see on my scene here, let's put them just right. There we go. Got a little Charmander jumping up and doing an alert on my camera. And also we're gonna throw this inside our camera scene. So that way, again, if we move this around, our alerts come with us. And this is now a solid gaming scene. You got your camera, you got your gameplay, you got a little bit of design added to it, and you've got your alerts for when people follow or sub or drop bits or whatever. From there, it's just kind of whatever you feel like adding. And browser sources can be really cool. The majority of fancy widgets that you put on your scene are done in a browser widget. So for example, I worked with this really talented widget designer named AC Pixel who made this now playing scene. So you can see if I play Neon Renegade from Streambeats, I can show my chat exactly what I'm playing. And all I have to do is launch this widget, take the URL, create a new browser source, which we will call now playing, and paste it in there. And he told me this is also 1920 by 1080. And there it is. You can move it around, resize it if we want a little now playing widget in the bottom left of the screen. Now it's right there. So there you go. You got a really cool now playing widget. You can hear the music playing in the background, and it took me like 15 seconds. So let's jump to the next thing. Let's set up a second scene here. We're gonna hit the plus button right here. We're gonna name it intermission, which is, in my opinion, the most important scene. A lot of people think your gameplay scene is the most important one because it's probably showing the most. But in reality, when you have your gameplay scene up, they're there to watch your gameplay and see you in the corner. And your intermission screen is when you're interacting with your audience. It's where it's about the actual engagement. And so I think this is the one that you should spend the most time on. Now you can see I can click back and forth. The intermission scene is empty because we haven't set anything up yet. But when you click on one, it changes scenes. Now let's do one thing first. The most important part of an intermission screen is the camera. So we're gonna go back to video capture device. and you can see it shows you which ones you've already made. So instead of making a whole new source, you can add an existing source, and here's our webcam. And just like that, we have our webcam full screen for our intermission. And if I click back and forth, you can see how it works. One thing I'm not crazy about is this crossfade transition. I want to do something really cool. So let's move over here to scene transitions. And right now it's set to fade with 300 millisecond duration. And you can see if I change this to 1,000, see how slow that is? If I change it to 100, super fast. So we're gonna add a new transition in here, and you can see there are a handful of options. If you want to do a swipe one, you can swipe left, you can preview it here. I hate those. I think they're terrible. Very few people should use them. Let's add a stinger transition. Stinger transitions are the ones with custom animations. These can be fantastic tools for your stream. They're one of the elements that makes your stream look like you put a lot of effort into it. I would even say they're one of the few times that you can kind of go overboard and do something over the top and people will still enjoy it. Here's the Fiverr transition. I don't remember what it looked like. Oh, it was this one. That's right, I remember now. So you can see if I hit preview transition, it shows me 2 scenes, but you can see that it transitions from one scene to the next before the animation goes. So what you do is you can set a transition point in milliseconds. Let's set it at half a second. Oh, you can see the transition right before the doors close. 650 milliseconds. There we go. This isn't my favorite transition I've ever seen. It's way too long, but it works. One other thing that's important, I don't know why the audio fade style is set to this. I like using mine as a crossfade so that my audio, my voice is always there while the transition's happening. And now, we've got 2 scenes in our transitions. And by the way, if you want a little trade secret about transitions here, you can have a different transition per scene. If I right click on gameplay scene here and go to transition override, I can actually set a different transition specifically for when I transition to the gameplay scene. So for example, if I want a different transition for each scene, I can go and I can make one individually with a plus button over here, name it properly, and then set it as the transition override. Okay, secret over. I can start talking at full volume again. I hope my microphone even picked me up when I said that. And the last basic function that you should be aware of here is the audio mixer, which is pretty straightforward. Most of the time when you add a source, like for example, the one it's picking up here is the cam link. It's actually hearing the microphone on the camera here. When you add a source that also has audio with it, it's gonna add it to your audio mixer right here. But for example, display capture, capturing your display doesn't add your gameplay sound into it. And right now we wouldn't hear any audio from the computer at all. So no gameplay audio, no music, no anything. There are 2 ways to add audio sources manually to your stream. One of them is to add an audio capture device. So because our gameplay would be computer audio that's outputted to our headphones, we're gonna grab an audio output capture. We'll call it gameplay audio. And I would pretty much grab like my headphones or whatever your audio is actually coming out of, which for me would be my Go XLR system audio. So you can see over here, if I pull up someone's stream now, like pull up my boy Wacky Jackie here. Now you can see it's picking up his audio. You can still hear my webcam right here.
Yes.
And also the gameplay audio is getting picked up. The other way to do audio is one we're gonna get into in a second because it's inside the settings, and honestly, it's kind of a preferable way to do it. We'll do it in just a second. But an important trick about mixing audio with these faders that not a lot of people know. You'll notice that it goes from 0 at the top down to negative infinity. That's just how the decibel scale works. Now the decibel scale is a logarithmic scale. And the way it works is that 6 dB in either direction will either half or double the audio levels. So for example, if Wacky Jackie is just way too loud and I wanna cut the volume down in half, I'll go down to -6. Now he'll be half the volume. If I wanna cut him in half again, I'll go to -12. Let's say I had him at -3 and I wanna cut him in half. I'll bring it down to -9, and that will be exactly half the volume from -3. But I don't want the webcam volume at all. I don't want to capture my camera microphone. That's going to sound terrible. So I'm going to mute it, and I'm going to click this little gear, and I'm going to hit hide. And now it just cleans it right off. So let's finish this off. Let's jump into the last area that you need to know at least the basics of, and that is the settings. There are a lot of settings to go through, and I know it's overwhelming, but honestly, like 90 to 95% of the settings, I actually haven't changed. Most of them are just fine in the default settings. So let me go over the ones that you need to be aware of and how to change them. For the most part, you don't need to touch much in general. Let's go to stream. This is where you tell OBS where you're sending your stream to. So for example, if you're streaming on Twitch, you can either go into your Twitch settings and grab your stream key and type it in there, or you can hit connect account and actually sign into your Twitch account. Twitch is actually integrated into OBS, and that's the way I do it. I would recommend it, just like OBS does. Cool. Output. This is an important one. This is where you adjust the quality of your stream. This is also where you can fix a lot of problems if you're dropping frames. I would recommend going to advanced. It gives you a handful more options, and then only worry about the streaming tab here. That's all we're going to talk about. There are 3 things in here that you should be aware of first. One is the encoder. Are you going to use your CPU with X264, or are you going to use NVIDIA's NVENC encoder built into the GPU if you have an NVIDIA graphics card? Now, if you're running a dedicated streaming PC, X264 is going to look a tiny bit better, and you've got that CPU there anyway, you might as well use it. However, if you're on a single PC setup, rather than sharing your CPU between encoding and gameplay, you can set this dedicated encoder chip that's on your GPU. You can get a lot smoother PC and better gameplay performance. The next one that's important is the bit rate. This is the file size that you are sending to Twitch. The larger the file size, the better it looks. 6,000 is the maximum Twitch recommends. It's a pretty safe place to go to. However, before I got transcoding options as a partner, I actually set this to 4,500 because this also explains the file size that your viewers are going to be watching in if you don't have transcoding option. And I found that bringing it down to 4,500 made it a little bit easier for my viewers with bad internet to be able to watch. And then you've got your encoder preset here. If you're on NVENC, max quality is great. If you're on X264, medium is what you are kind of aiming for. Now with X264, the faster it is, the worse it looks, but the easier it is on your PC. So if you're set to medium, but you're dropping encoder frames, switch it to fast. You'll lose a little bit of quality, but you're not going to be dropping frames. Anything above medium is kind of overkill. And at that point, you're adding a huge load to your PC with very negligible differences. Unless you have like a Threadripper PC, it's just not even worth it. Okay, audio. Now this is a better place for you to grab audio inputs. This little devices section is really the only section you need to worry about in here. Now you have 2 desktop inputs and 2 mic inputs. Your desktop sources are outputs, things that happen inside your computer that are sending out to speakers or sending out to your headphones. So for example, your gameplay will be in here. Exactly what we were looking at before. For me, it would be system audio. Or if you have separate outputs and you're using voice meter or something like that, and you want to grab your music separately, that would be there also. And you can see when I hit apply, we've got 2 brand new sources in here, but we'll rename number 2 music. There we go. And the real advantage of this is now you can have an audio source that's not filling up your sources over here. So it just kind of keeps things a little bit cleaner. Your mic inputs, however, are external devices that are going into your computer. For example, a microphone. Or if you're streaming your console gameplay and you've got your console going into a capture card, your capture card would be another thing you could find in here. However, you're probably grabbing your capture card in sources, so you don't really need to add it in again in an audio device. Video is quick and simple, but it's important that you understand your base canvas is the resolution of this canvas here. So you can see if I change this to 720p, everything gets cropped in because I just made this canvas smaller and these were scaled to 1080p. Let me change it back. However, if you're dropping frames, you need to lighten the load on the PC a little bit. You can change your output, what OBS sends to Twitch, down to 720p, and even change your FPS to 30 FPS. Now your computer is only encoding a 720p 30 FPS stream. And while yes, you will lose a little bit of quality going down to 720p 30, a smooth 720p 30 stream is a much better viewing experience than a choppy 1080-60 dropping packets of 6 frames at a time. And really, of all the settings, those are the important ones that you should know when you're starting. Once you get the hang of OBS, feel free to explore other settings. It's cool to know what you have in your toolbox, but I mean, you can take these settings I mentioned and you can run with them for a couple of years. You're totally fine. There is one cool trick that I want to show you in the settings, and that
What is going on, everybody? My name is Preacher. Welcome to the Streamloots YouTube channel, where we discuss all things related to live streaming to help you make a living doing what you love. So, what is Streamloots anyway? Well, Streamloots is a fully customizable, card-based system that gives the viewer the ability to create hilarious interactions and the streamer the ability to monetize their content. On our channel, you'll see more in-depth videos that explain Streamloots and help you utilize it to build your community and your brand, all while monetizing your content. In addition to that, we're really passionate about resourcing content creators with information that helps them grow. Maybe you're looking for tips and tricks, or you're just starting out learning how to use streaming software. Whether your channel's small or whether you have an established community, this is going to be a great place for you to get inspiration on creating content that captivates your audience. Thanks again for watching, you guys. If you want to stay up to date with all things related to Streamloots, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, don't forget to subscribe right now to the YouTube channel. We'll see you guys next time.
Hotkeys. You saw earlier I was switching between scenes by clicking on this, but if you're in the middle of a stream, you don't want to be grabbing your mouse, finding the right scene. Some people have dozens of scenes. So once I go to hotkeys in the settings, I can go to my gameplay scene right here. You can see there's an option for switch to scene. I'm gonna set that as left brace. And then I'm gonna go to my intermission scene. I'm gonna set that one as the end brace. And now, and let's go back. Voila, switch to scene hotkeys. If you don't have a Stream Deck, which obviously is a better alternative than that, this is a great way to easily switch between scenes right on your keyboard. So by the way, if any of you guys are beginners and you enjoyed this video, if you found this really helpful, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you want me to make another video that's about more advanced tips and tricks in OBS to help you kind of take your stream to the next level, let me know in the comments down below. Again, I do stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so if you have some questions that maybe I missed, feel free to hit me up on there. But
What is going on, everybody? My name is Preacher. Welcome back to the Alpha Gaming channel. My name is Harris Heller. I am your stream doctor, and today we're going to talk about how to make your transitions look like this and like this. Pretty dope, huh? Look, there are lots of ways to add design to your stream to make it stand out, but there's one in particular that I think is very underutilized because it's a little more difficult to make. And you probably figured out which one that is because it's in the title, and I just showed you what my transitions looked like. But yes, it's transitions from scene to scene. But before we get started, let me say something that I say a lot. Design on its own is not enough to make a stream successful. You need a personality, you need content, but amongst a lot of different things, when people pop in your stream, for the first time, they're not going to be there very long. And if there's something in there that they see and it makes them go, oh wow, maybe there's something to this stream, I should hang out here a little bit longer. Something like that is going to give you a huge edge. It's going to allow them to spend more time in the stream getting to know you and liking you and feeling a little bit of loyalty to you and coming back later. I would also like to start by saying that this video is proudly sponsored
by the Hella Baby t-shirt. Currently available at redbubble.com, link down in the description below. If you're not already a part of the Hella Baby Twitch fam, you're welcome to join the Discord, buy the t-shirt, rep it. This actually says in Japanese, it's pronounced Hella Baby. I'm not a Japanese faker, I know my stuff. So if you want to make people around you think that you're cultured when really you're just repping me, pick up the shirt. Anyway, let's get talking about your transitions. If you've been around Twitch, you've probably seen some well-designed streams that have decent transitions. Streams like Jason Sully or Fear itself. They've both found designers that have created some really good looking transitions. And when you've got multiple setup scenes, it's important to have something like that. These are called stinger transitions, and they're getting pretty popular. They work by creating an animation that has a transparent background. At some point, that animation needs to fill up the entire screen. And at that moment that it fills up the screen, the scenes behind it swap. It's a pretty simple concept, but when it's done right, it looks really cool. What we're gonna do today is not only take that already fairly advanced technique and push it one giant step further. You not only want your scene change to be all fancy schmancy, you want every single one of your elements in your stream, whether it's an overlay or a camera or whatever, to come in a very conspicuous fashion. And essentially how it works is your computer tells OBS to activate particular animations and cameras and overlays in a particular order, so when it's all compiled together, it comes together as a really cool transition. For example, the order of this one is play stinger transition, switch scenes, activate overlay animation, activate camera and overlay underneath said animation, deactivate animation. All right, I went over this pretty quick. So let's go step by step. Let's break everything down piece by piece. First things first, the way I'm able to create this sequence of events is with my Elgato Stream Deck. In the latest update, they added a cool new feature called multi-action, which is essentially just macro software. You're able to place the order in which you want it to do multiple things, including adding delays between those things. But if you don't have an Elgato Stream Deck, really any solid macro software will work just fine. So let's run over exactly what's happening here. In this transition, the first thing that the Stream Deck does is it switches from my camera scene to my gameplay scene, which initiates that blue shell stinger transition. Next, you can see there's a delay as it's waiting for the stinger transition to finish. The delay ends as the shell is taking up the whole screen. And to make this transition a little easier, rather than turning off the overlay and the cameras and everything that's there, I just duplicated my display capture and placed it in front of all those things so it looks like they're gone. So when the stinger transition finishes, it looks like it's nothing but my gameplay. After activating that extra display capture, it deactivates the next animation to make sure that once it activates, it starts from the beginning. Then there's another delay as we wait for the stinger transition to completely finish, wherein it reactivates that animation that we see right here. Once it activates that animation, there's another delay while we wait for the animation to finish. This delay ends when the animation is in its full view stage, allowing us to get rid of that extra gaming layer and show our camera behind this image right now. The end of the animation fades out, revealing the cameras and overlays underneath it. This would be a little easier to understand if you were to look at it from a slightly different angle. So let's do that real quick. Scene change starts, activating the stinger. Delay, waiting for the stinger to fill out the whole screen. Extra gaming layer is activated, covering up the cameras and the overlays. Stinger transition finishes. The overlay animation begins, and a delay starts to let the animation finish. Once the animation is full, the extra gaming layer disappears, and the animation fades out, revealing the cameras and overlays underneath. This should make a little more sense now. This was the first transition I did. And so by the time I started working on my second one to go back to this scene here, I was able to smooth things out a little bit. Instead of having a stinger transition for the scene change and animation for the little camera coming in from the side and another animation for the text coming in on the bottom, I made it all one giant animation that serves as the stinger animation. This completely eliminated the need for OBS to process multiple sources coming in and out. This is my entire stinger transition video file. While this is happening, the other sources are just chilling underneath it, so when this scene fades out, they're already there, simplifying the process up quite a bit. Now, before you start going out and making these on your own, there are a couple roadblocks I'm gonna tell you about before you trip over them like I did. 1, there will be a lot of troubleshooting. Expect to think that you got it perfect, and then when you hit the transition button, your camera appears before the transition finishes, or something's just not timed right, and you have to go in and really nitpick the delays to get everything perfect. Make sure you don't overlook those tiny details. The whole purpose of these is to really draw in the viewer and bring them into the experience, and a detail missing or being out of place can ruin the whole effect. A difficult one is that you can't animate sources. You can't have your camera move in from the side of the screen, which is why you notice that whenever I have a camera moving in from the side, it's just static or the camera's not there, and then once it gets into place, it opens up and the camera appears behind it. Use little tricks like that to replace the fact
For some time, transitioning between scenes was not a strong suit of OBS Studio. But in recent updates, they have added a wide variety of transition options, and now the ability to import your own custom video transitions. This is an extremely powerful feature, though it could use some improvements. Let's take a look right after this. TunnelBear is the fast and easy VPN service that keeps your data safe and secure behind a bear. Sign up for your 7-day free course works in case you get confused. To use transitions, you need to select one in the Scenes Transition menu module and click the drop-down. Here, you can choose a transition type to be active. Below this, you can change the duration of the transition period in milliseconds. The default was 300 milliseconds for me, which is 1/3 of a second. In between those two boxes are buttons to add a new transition, something we'll be using a lot, remove a transition from the list, and a settings cog to change transition settings. As of version 20.0.1 and the production of this course, you can only set up a single transition to be used at a time. This means that whichever option is showing in the drop-down menu when it's not expanded is the transition that will happen when you switch scenes. The same transition carries over if you go into dual view studio mode as well. I would like to see the ability to add per scene transitions so that you can use specific transitions depending on what you're switching to. For example, quick cut transitions between multiple camera angles but lengthier stinger style transitions when going to BRB screens or between a game view and a desktop view. The only way this can currently be done is via the Advanced Scene Switcher plugin that I use for auto scene switching, and even this isn't for normal switching, it's just for auto switching. A video on that plugin is in the course playlist if you're interested in that. I did cover that in depth. If you only see cut or the original combo of cut, swipe, and slide, fear not. Simply click the big plus and you have the option to add custom transitions from a few new options. Fade to color does as it sounds. Opening up its properties lets you choose a color, though keep in mind if you choose a custom color from the hue board, you will have to hit add to custom colors and choose it from that list before applying. A really weird thing. Otherwise, choose one of the color choices or click pick screen color to get an eyedropper to pick any color visible on the screen. This one automatically adds custom colors and selects it. Hit OK. You can also choose at which point during the transition that the full color should be 100% present and opaque. Typically, you want to leave this at 50%. Hit OK again, and now you can fade to your chosen color as a transition. You can add multiple fade to color transitions to switch between via the drop-down menu. As with every transition. Adding a Luma wipe transition lets you pick from a preset list of transition modes typically used as built-in presets for video editors. This gives you a wide selection of wipes, linear wipes, clock wipes, zigzags, barn doors, and all sorts of them. It pops up this big empty window for some reason, resize it and move it so you can switch between scenes in the main OBS window and preview the transitions. Doesn't work in the actual transition menu. The softness number affects how hard or soft the edges of the shapes are. Play with this to your liking. You can also invert the shapes of the transitions to do the reverse. Click OK when you're done. Lastly, we have the stinger. A stinger transition is basically a video clip or animation that fills the screen briefly while scenes transition and then pulls off of the screen. This is key for high quality production value for broadcasts and can even be seen in some cartoons. You can make these yourself using most higher level video editors by rendering them as an MOV or uncompressed AVI with an alpha transparency layer included. You can also find plenty of basic free ones online with a few easy Google searches, or get higher quality royalty free ones from a marketplace like VideoBlocks. I'll include a couple basic ones linked in the video description. I cannot share all the ones that I use since some of them are from VideoBlocks or directly from creators and so on, but I can share a couple. This used to require a plugin for the program, but they've recently integrated it into the full software, a very powerful feature. You add a stinger transition much like any other transition. Click the plus under Scene Transitions UI module and click Stinger. Give it a name based on what transition you're using. Now browse and find your video file. Again, it needs to be a video with alpha transparency built in. You can't chroma key it or anything like that. And audio isn't currently supported with these transitions either. Ideally, this window would show you a preview and such to help you out here, but it doesn't. You have to move the window out of the way and test scene transitioning on the actual main OBS window. You also need to pop in a number, either in milliseconds or frames, that the transition actually happens at. This needs to be whenever your graphic fully fills the frame so that viewers don't see the actual transition taking place. You can get the exact millisecond or frame time from your video editor, or just play the clip back, find the exact point, and do the math to convert to milliseconds, and you're good to go. With that stinger transition enabled, it will now show up when you switch scenes, and it is pretty neat. And that's it. OBS Studio provides quite the plethora of options for transitions during your live streams or recording. It just takes a little navigation to get them set up for you. And hopefully, before too long, they'll add in the capabilities to assign transitions to specific scenes. Crossing my fingers here. I hope this episode of my OBS Studio tutorial course has been helpful for you. If it has, hit the like button, subscribe for more awesome tech content, come follow me on Twitch if you like game streaming, and drop me a message in chat. Until next time, I'm EposVox. Happy streaming.
Thanks for watching this episode of my OBS Studio tutorial course. More videos like this and a full master class are linked in the playlist in the video description. Click to learn more. Also, consider joining us on Patreon to help keep tech education free. Go to patreon.com/eposvox to sign up.
The fact that I could invest in real estate, someone that had no experience at all, no knowledge, I've done something that I never thought that I could do.
I've never been to an event or a class that has been so jam-packed full of information. I took down like 6 pages of notes for free.
In the 5 properties that we've bought, we have not put a dime of our own money into it.
On A&E's Flip This House, we remodel homes, but that's just a part of what we do. For over 15 years, we bought and sold hundreds of houses, including rental properties. We have systems that get results, and we use them every single day.
Real estate has completely changed our lives, and we love being able to share what we've learned. Over 1 million people have come to our free live event.
In the 2-hour event, all the information that you need to know to start, it's there.
After 2 hours, suddenly we knew that we didn't have to do one deal at a time, that it was possible to scale up and to really make it a viable business.
I trust Paul and JD's systems because I've seen them work, not only for others, but now I've seen them work for myself, for my family.
We've heard it a lot. People say, what can I do to feel more financially secure? Well, whether we're
back slightly, we're going to see both the red and the grey layer. So let's do that. With the grey layer selected, press P to bring up the position keyframes again. And what we're going to do is we're going to select these first 2 keyframes, move our playhead to the second keyframe just so that we can make sure that we still have full coverage. And then we're going to drag our grey behind our red. So we're going to move it to the left just slightly. So
Having a custom logo stinger with your logo is an important element to help brand your stream and make your stream feel more professional overall. So today I'm going to show you how to make one that looks like this in Blender 3D, a completely 100% free open source software package. And if you've never used Blender before, I've linked a really good introductory course that goes over the interface in the description below. But I will be using the standard gizmos to manipulate objects to keep this as simple as possible for beginners. That being said, let's get started. My name is Chris Folia. I'll be your stream professor. Welcome to Stream School. Okay, first things first, when we hop into Blender, you'll notice I have screencast keys on, so you can see what buttons I'm pressing the entire time if you didn't catch something. Secondly, let's go ahead and get our interface set up for success for this project. So we're gonna hop over to the camera button right here and down to color management. And we're gonna change the view transform to standard instead of filmic. That will make it so the program does not mess with the colors of our logo.